Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Legal Tech Hub product briefing. I'm Stephanie Wilkins, Director of Content at Legal Tech Hub, and today we are talking to LinkSquares. I'm joined by Colleen Matthews, Senior Product Marketing Manager, and Nick Bright, Sales Engineer. Thanks for joining me today. Before we get started, I was hoping you could give our audience a little bit of a background of what LinkSquares does and how it got started.
Yeah, so LinkSquares was founded about 10 years ago in 2015. Originally, our founders were going through an acquisition of a previous company. And as they were trying to get all of their contracts and information together to provide to that acquiring company, they found how manual and disjointed a lot of contract storage and even just accessing that data was. So they really set out to build an AI-powered platform that would not only centralize contracts, but also layer in that technology to make contracts that were previously really static into data-driven assets that they could go in and report on and really surface up that information. After creating an AI-powered repository to centralize those contracts and pull out that information, we also expanded it to a full end-to-end CLM, adding in a pre-signature tool to automate the contract drafting and workflow process, and also building in a native eSignature solution. So now we offer AI-powered end-to-end CLM through drafting to signature to storage and execution.
Great. And so that end-to-end CLM tool is what we're going to be seeing today in the demo, which I know is a lot to cover. So we'll be seeing just a little bit of it. But before we jump into the demo, maybe you could give us a little bit of a preview of what you might be walking us through today before we see it live.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be uploading a contract for our legal team to review, acting as if we were a member of our sales team. We're then going to shift gears, put on our legal hats, and see how we can easily redline and review this contract using the LinkSquares finalized platform, generate a risk score, as I mentioned, do some redlining, and ultimately correspond with the counterparty to get this agreement signed. And we'll then jump over into our Analyze repository and look how easy it is to identify some key features of our existing contracts, specifically what's coming up for renewal in the next 90 days, and what do we need to focus on to make a decision about how to proceed with those agreements. So where we're going to start today is in Finalize, which is LinkSquares' pre-signature contract drafting tool. This is our main agreements page that allows our team to see anything that we currently have in flight at any given moment, so anything that we're actively negotiating or redlining with the vendor party. And if I wanted to go ahead and upload an agreement for legal to review, all I have to do is select this orange button in the upper right-hand corner, asking for a new agreement or request. I'll then see all of the templates that my legal team has made available to me because system admins are able to restrict access to individual templates and Finalize. So if we want everything to flow through this single front door with the legal request form, I can do that. Or I can give my team access to all of these templates we have built out because there's some pretty robust guardrails in place and they're not really able to do anything we don't want them to do. So in this case, we'll select this template for a third-party intake form. And then all I have to do is drag and drop the relevant agreement I want my team to take a look at, and then answer the questions they built into the template level. Now, these questions are entirely customizable and allow our team to capture any information we might need to keep this agreement moving forward in terms of what team are you on, what's the contract value of this agreement, provide us with some context. These questions are entirely customizable, as I mentioned, and can actually be used to dynamically loop in members of our team to review this agreement depending on the context. So maybe, for instance, we have a threshold around contract value, where if it's above a certain amount, we will want finance automatically looped in to review that agreement. And depending on what team we're on, we're going to need our manager to be looped in here as well to review this agreement. So I'll save and finish, and this will take us to what we call this individual agreement view here in Finalize. So think about this kind of like the negotiation hub for this particular deal, where I can see a lot of valuable information about any kind of tasks or approvals that need to be completed, the information my team provided when they were submitting this agreement for review, as well as this activity log that gives us a full audit trail of any changes that are made to the document, as well as allows us to communicate internally with the rest of our team. So if I wanted to send someone a message, let them know that we've uploaded an agreement, I can do that here. And if they're not already working on the agreement, they're going to be added as a collaborator and given some visibility. But now we're keeping track of our internal communication around this agreement as well. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and download this agreement and open it up in Microsoft Word. And what you'll notice is that we mirror a lot of the same functionality in Word that we have in the browser version of Finalize. So I can see the same activity log and any approval tasks that need to be completed. But this is also where I'm going to do this review of the document. So I'll start by getting this generative AI summary of the agreement that gives me this one sentence abstract and these key points in the document. And one thing I'll mention about this feature is it can be easily copy and pasted out into a separate file. So if you have an executive, a member of your leadership team who doesn't want to have to log into the system, but wants an update on a specific agreement, I can copy this information out and paste it into a new Word document, or maybe an email or a Slack message, and send whoever is interested this one sentence summary of the agreement and these key points right here. But this is also where we have a generative AI assistant that I can ask open-ended questions about this agreement. So for instance, I can ask it to describe our liability according to the terms of this agreement. And even though that's a fairly broad question, it'll give me a very nuanced breakdown of the various aspects of liability as they exist in this agreement here. So for instance, we'll start to see some detail around consequential damages exclusions, maximum liability cap, warranty disclaimers, indemnification provisions, survival of liability provisions. And all of this includes the underlying reference language within the actual document itself, and the ability to jump to and highlight any of those relevant sections for our review, should we want to take a closer look. But the main feature that our customers really get value out of, and the thing that's going to help the most kind of expedite and automate your redlining and review process, is this feature that we call drafting rules. Because this allows us to effectively tell the system, hey, review this agreement and look out for specific language, and please ensure that it aligns with our preferred terms. So for instance, I can have a rule here about the fee increase cap, where I want to make sure that we're not agreeing to an annual increase of greater than 3%. I want to make sure that we're removing any automatic renewal language because it's our company policy just not to agree to that. And I want to make sure that the governing law of all of our agreements is Delaware and not anywhere else in the United States, because we just want to have some standardization across all of our agreements. Now, these rules can be workflow specific because maybe you have different rules or expectations, for instance, an MNDA than you do for an NDA. But what's going to happen is the system's going to flag any language that violates our rules. In this case, asking for a 6% increase instead of our preferred 3%. And it will then suggest some edits where we're really just going to change that 6 to a 3. But I want to be very clear about this part, which is that the system is not going to automatically edit the document for you. It's going to wait until we come in here and manually accept or approve these edits. And the thought process here on our part is that we would much rather have you guys come in here and make this small manual lift to confirm a change, rather than have to come in after the fact and undo something you didn't actually want changed in the first place, because there are always exceptions to every rule.
Sure.
And then in the case of this governing law rule here, because it looks like this agreement does not contain any automatic renewal language, I can see the governing law of this agreement is listed as the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I can see the system suggested edits where we're just going to swap out the name of that state for the state of Delaware. But I also have the ability to include some preferred language. So if I want to standardize this across all of our agreements going forward, it's very easy to copy and paste this directly out into the agreement from here. And now, once I've made my changes, I can go ahead and push this new version of the agreement directly back into Finalize. There's no need to manually download it and upload it. And so now, this version will be synced to the browser version of Finalize. I can see all of this reflected on the activity log here. And we're now starting to establish a version history disagreement down here at the bottom. So I can see the initial copy we received, and then the changes that we've made on our 2.0 version here. So now I'll go ahead and send it out to the counterparty using our built-in email functionality. So again, this is saving me the manual step of having to download this agreement, go into my inbox, attach it, and send it out. I'm allowed to do this from directly within the LinkSquares platform. And the benefits of this, in addition to fewer manual steps, as I mentioned, is that this is going to arrive in their inbox looking like a regular email and allow the counterparty to interact with LinkSquares without requiring them to log in or learn their way around. Because all they're going to see is an email with the subject line and a body that I've written, and a copy of the file attached as either a docx or a PDF. And then, an added benefit of doing this from within the LinkSquares platform is, one, we have a record here that's timestamped of who emailed this agreement to whom and when. But I can also now see the actual text of that email that we sent to the counterparty here. So again, we're establishing this historic record that tracks not just any changes that are made to this agreement, but it keeps track of our internal communication, as well as our full version history and our correspondence with the counterparty. So part of the benefit of enabling the counterparty to operate this way is that if they have any changes they want to make to this document, all they have to do is reply to that email and send it right back. Because this is what they've received in their inbox. So an email with the subject line and the body I wrote and a copy of the file I attached. And all they have to do is just say, looks good. We made one more small change, and then attach their new version of this agreement and send it back. And it might take a second, but this email they've sent to us with their new version of the agreement and the text of their email is going to be pulled back in here to the agreement view in Finalize. It'll be added to our version history, and it'll be reflected here on our activity log. Okay, so now we've received this new version of the agreement back from the counterparty. Again, I can see it reflected here on our activity log. It's been added to our version history, and I can see the actual email they sent back to us letting us know they made one small change. Now, they didn't tell us what that was, which would have been helpful, but the good news is we can easily identify any changes between two versions of a document using our built-in version comparison tool here. I just have to select the two versions I want to compare, indicate which one is the original, and then I'll get this track changes version of that underlying document spit out for me, which makes it very easy to identify what has changed from one version to another. So I can see here, for instance, it looks like they pushed the effective date out from September to October, which is not a big deal. So our team can come in here, complete these approval tasks, having reviewed the agreement and gotten the language to a place that's satisfactory for us. And then this agreement is going to automatically move into this ready for signature status. And we'll now be able to send it out using our preferred eSignature tool. So I'll go ahead and leverage LinkSquares Sign, which is going to operate in a very similar fashion to a lot of other eSignature tools you might be familiar with, where I'm going to add our recipients, and if it's someone from our team, their information is saved here. And the counterparty information can be pre-populated here as well. I can order these approvals, so maybe we want them to go to the counterparty first before it comes to me. And I can add a member of our, say, revenue operations team who maybe doesn't need to sign, but I would still like to receive a copy of this agreement once it's executed. And then it's a matter of, again, just dragging and dropping those signature fields where they need to go, and then sending it out. And because we're leveraging our own internal signature tool here, which is part of our fully integrated CLM, we're going to get a lot of visibility into the status of the signature process once this goes out. So I'll be able to see here, for instance, that this agreement is now in this out for signature status, and I can actually see that 0 of 2 people who need to sign it have signed it. I can open up this detail field here that will show me the actual status of the signature process, who's included, who it needs to go to. I'll get a timestamped update when they look at the agreement, and another one for when they sign it. But also this allows me to easily reassign the agreement at any step of the process. So let's say we immediately get a bounce back from the counterparty saying, hey, I'm out of the office for the next 2 weeks. Here's who to go to should anything arise. I don't have to wait for that person to get back into the office to reassign that signature request from their end. I can do that from directly here and pass it on to whoever they've identified as their backup. Then, once this agreement is fully signed, again, because it's part of our fully integrated CLM, that final version that includes both signatures is going to be pulled in here and added to our version history. The status of this agreement will automatically change to fully signed. And then the final version is going to be automatically pushed over into our Analyze repository with no need for anyone to manually go into that signature tool, download it, and upload it. The system is going to do that for us. And it's also going to establish a link between the two versions of this agreement. So I can see here, it's linked to Analyze. If I come back to this info section now, I'll see this new compliance field and a link to view it and Analyze. And if I click on that link, it'll take me to the version of this agreement that now lives in our post-signature repository. And that linkage works in both directions. So if at any point in the future, maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, I need to renew or negotiate this agreement, but I don't recall how or why we agreed to specific terms, maybe the person who negotiated it has left the organization and their email has been shut off, I can come to this info section, see this ingestion path field, as well as some information about who added this agreement to the repository and when, and click on this link to view it and finalize. And it'll take me back to this individual agreement view here, where I have access to our entire audit log and timestamped changes that are made to this document, as well as our internal communication history, in addition to the full version history and our correspondence with the counterparty as we negotiated this agreement. So you always have access to this historic record as long as you guys are LinkSquares customers. It's not something that disappears automatically after 12 months. So we're going to shift gears now over into Analyze, which is the LinkSquares post-signature repository. So this main agreements page might look a little bit similar to what we just looked at in Finalize, the key difference being that all of these agreements are fully signed and executed as opposed to in flight and actively being negotiated. Now, 2 of the main benefits of the Analyze repository are 1, the way that it organizes your agreements, and 2 is the ability it provides to report on the details of those agreements. From an organizational perspective, we're actually applying a standardized naming convention to every agreement that flows into this repository. As part of our digitization process, we're extracting key metadata points that we call smart values. And what we do is we take those smart values and put them in the same order for every agreement that enters the repository to create this standardized naming convention. So if we look closely, we'll see that everything in this agreement's name column follows this standardized naming convention, where I have the parties to an agreement, Aardvark Global and LinkSquares, Acme Corp and LinkSquares, Ajax and LinkSquares. We've identified the agreement type, whether it's a master agreement or an amendment or a data agreement, and we're extracting the effective date here as well. Now there's some customization available. We can pull in a couple different data points and put them in a slightly different order. But the point I want to convey is that as this is currently configured, if I want to find all of our agreements with a specific vendor or counterparty in the analyzed repository, all I have to do is type that vendor name into this agreement's name field, and I can see all agreements we have with Clampett Oil, whether they're listed as the first party in the agreement or the second. The other way we're organizing agreements is through these what we call tags, which you can see over here on the left. We've used tags to replace the traditional nested folder structure, but what we see a lot is a vendor-specific folder, and within that subfolders for effective year of agreements, type of agreements, maybe a specific project or property or subsidiary that they relate to. And the issues that approach creates are twofold. One, if you want to find something, you have to know exactly where to look for it, and good luck if you misfile something, ever tracking it down again. And two, is it artificially narrows the scope of your search, so I can only see the things in that folder at the exclusion of everything else. So what we've done instead is we've taken those folder names, all those pieces of information and attributes that you're using to organize your agreements, and turn them into tags using this flat tagging structure here that allows me to see everything I need to know about an agreement all in one place, but not artificially limiting the scope of our search to just things in that folder, just agreements that share those same attributes. So I can see here 20 agreements on the same page, even though they're all with different vendors from different years of different types. Still, again, seeing all the information I need to know about them, but not artificially limiting the scope of our search. Now, there's two types of tags in Analyze. These light green ones are what we call smart tags, and they're applied automatically by the system that cover the parties to an agreement and the effective year. But we can also create and color code custom tags to convey information about an industry, a region, maybe which department internally is responsible for an agreement, and actually use these tags and this agreement type designation to restrict access to agreements within the repository. So maybe we wanted to have some employment agreements in here, something that's a little bit more HR focused. We could create and apply a restricted tag to those agreements, and then give most of our team a custom role that's prohibited from seeing anything with those restricted tag applied. So what that means is that our entire team can live and operate in a single repository with a single source of truth, but fully siloed and compartmentalized so that nobody can see anything they're not supposed to. All right, I want to quickly just run through a report because I know we're short on time here. So let's say that LinkSquares operates on a standard 3-year contract, meaning everything that was signed in 2022 is coming up for renewal this year. I have 700 agreements in my repository. So if I have to go through those manually to identify not just those that are coming up for renewal, but then understand the implications of that renewal, that's going to be a very onerous process. We can be very manual. So instead, what I can do is I can leverage this information that the Analyze repository is already extracting from these agreements as filters to help narrow the scope of our search. So I can say, for instance, I want to find all of our master agreements that were signed in 2022. And now with 2 clicks, I've narrowed the scope of our search down to 153 agreements that meet this very specific criteria. But if I wanted to really just focus on the last 4 months of the year because it's mid-September, I can leverage these smart values, these global terms that we're extracting from our agreements as an additional layer of filtering. So I can say, for instance, I want to find any agreement that has a termination date in the next 90 days. And now we've narrowed it down to the 25 agreements that meet this very specific criteria. Master agreements signed in 2022, expiring in the next 90 days. But again, with 25 agreements, if I have to go through them individually to understand how and when we can terminate them and the impact of any renewal, that's going to be very manual. So what I can do instead is I can reconfigure the columns on this main agreements page to pull all that information into one place. So I can see, for instance, maybe the termination date of these agreements and the full text of the termination clause, understand our ability to terminate this agreement for convenience, as well as the impact of any renewal on pricing, and whether or not we have an opt-out date that we need to be aware of. So we can see all this information here in one place. So I can see if there's any opt-out dates that I need to be aware of for this agreement. I can see the numeric value of any renewal price increase, as well as the language outlining it. I can see our ability to terminate this agreement for convenience, as well as the full text of our termination clause, and ultimately the date that these agreements terminate. Then, once I had this report built, I can export the results as a CSV that's going to mirror the column configuration you've seen here. And this is something that can be shared with someone who may or may not have access to LinkSquares, like an attorney or some outside counsel. But I can give them just the information I want them to review here. So for all of these agreements, I can see whether or not we can have an auto renewal we need to be mindful of, the numeric value of any renewal price increase and the language outlining it, our ability to terminate this agreement for convenience, the full text of the termination clause, and ultimately the date that this agreement actually terminates. But then for anybody who does have LinkSquares access, this agreement's name column, these are live links. So if I wanted to review this Black Mesa agreement, I can just click directly into it and see it here. And then the last thing I want to say about these reports is I can save them. So if this is something I need to run on a regular basis, I can do that with a single click instead of manually recreating these filters, or I can automate it. So I can have it sent to the inbox of myself or anyone else on my team, regardless of whether or not they have access to LinkSquares, and have that be delivered on a regular basis, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, or annually. And the results are going to update as new agreements are added to the repository.
Well, thank you for that. I know that was a really comprehensive overview, and I know we had a short amount of time here, so we will be putting a URL at the bottom of the screen for people who want to reach out to LinkSquares or find out more information, because of course there is a lot more you could have shown us, and I'm sure people will have more questions and want to follow up. But I appreciate you joining us today and showing us what LinkSquares can do, at least a little bit of what it can do. So thank you, Colleen and Nick, for being here, and it was great talking with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, and have a great day, everyone.